Hi everybody, welcome back. Well, I promised a few people that I would continue on with the Barbie and Ken killers. Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo. Excuse me, my goodness. I'm going to cut that out. Anyway, we're going to start with Karla Homolka and we're going to talk about what she was up to before she met Paul Bernardo. So Karla was born Karla Leanne Homolka on May 4th, 1970. Now, she kind of grew up in a rocky upbringing, childhood that not quite as nasty as Paul's, but her dad was a drunk and her mother and her father used to fight a lot. So Karla was the oldest of three girls, and her and her sisters just used to comfort each other whenever their parents were fighting and that. So there isn't much more to say about her earlier years, except when she was a teenager, she got a job at a pet store, telling everybody how much she loved animals, neglecting to say that when she was at her friend's house, she threw her friend's hamster out a second floor window. Not long after that, Karla Homolka became fascinated with the occult. Okay? I mentioned this in a previous video and it had nothing to do with these two. It had to do with Gypsy Rose. But we were talking about Ouija boards, and Karla Homolka got hooked on Ouija boards. Well, when you have a darkness inside of you, it doesn't take much for them to cling on to you. Oh yeah, they'll use you left, right, and center. And I'm not going to say that that's an excuse, because it's not, obviously. I'm just going to say it didn't help. So this too was around the time when she started getting fascinated with death. She started getting fascinated with the idea of a body. So now we're going to get to where she met Paul Bernardo. So she was 17 and they met at a convention in Toronto. So they met at a convention when she was 17 in Toronto. So everybody thought Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka were a perfect match. They were good-looking kids, and they were like, young and vibrant and just, outgoing couple. So it didn't take long for Paul Bernardo to start telling Karla Homolka some of his fantasies. We know she had a few twisted thoughts of her own. So, it's not one way or the other. He didn't convince her. She didn't convince him. It was just two black souls meeting. So Paul Bernardo was kind of upset that he didn't get Karla Homolka's V. Okay? Apparently she had sex with somebody previous. And that bothered him. So he used to bug her all the time saying he wanted a virgin. Right? Karla says, let me think. I have one right here in my house. That's when the wheels started turning to do nasty things to Karla's sister, Tammy. So Karla and Paul decided one night they were going to get Tammy drunk. And maybe put a little bit of drugs in there too. We're never sure about that. For sure, alcohol. Now, somewhere during the night where she was drinking, she had vomited. Before they did what they did, she passed out at some point, and they SA'd her before subsequently schmurdering her. Now, Karla Homolka ran up and told her parents that Tammy had choked on vomit and that she's passed out and she thinks she's not alive anymore, and this is how that all started. So because Tammy had vomited at some point, the coroner also put down the cause of death would be vomiting, choking on her vomit. So it wasn't long after Tammy's demise that Karla and Paul started taping themselves speaking about what they did to Tammy. And they called it the Fireside Tales. Like, I don't know. But this is where they started taping themselves religiously. Now, they taped themselves, together. They taped themselves You'll find out. You can find the transcript of it online. I would advise against it. Seriously, it's very disturbing. Yeah. So after what happened to Tammy, it seems like Karla and Paul got a little taste of something that both of them seem to have been yearning for. And they decided they were going to try again. So it wasn't long after that, Paul and Karla moved to a house in Dalhousie, St. Catharines, which is like a little suburb. And like I said before, St. Catharines not far from Niagara Falls. So if you're on the American side, you can pretty much judge where Niagara Falls is. And hop, skip, jumping away from that borderline is Dalhousie. So on June 7th, 1991, Karla decides she's going to invite a friend of hers around to their house. A girl that she was working with, who was 15 at the time. So a lot like Tammy, this girl woke up the next morning and she was vomiting, and she thought she had drank too much because they were feeding her alcohol as well. And she thought her hangover, that was just a hangover. She did not realize at that moment that she had been SA'd as well. So it was not long after Karla brought her friend home. This is when Karla and Paul married in the end of June 1991. The same day as their marriage, coincidentally enough, a couple that was canoeing in Lake Gibson discovered concrete blocks, and there was a body. That body was Leslie Mahaffey. Now I'm going to end this here, guys. I want to save some for next week, and it kind of gets you down after a while when you're nonstop talking about that kind of stuff. When it's gypsy, it's I'm not going to say it's any easier, because it's not, but we tend to forget sometimes when we're talking about gypsy what actually brought her to where she is. You understand? Whereas this one was a continuation of one right after the other, after the other, after the other. And it does bring a person down after, when you start thinking about it. For me, this one is really close to home. They were married in 1991. My second son was born in 1992. So I wasn't much older than them at the time. So I remember when everything came out, I watched nothing about... on TV, you couldn't turn a channel. It was all over the place, So, anyway, guys, I'm going to leave this one here. Please like and subscribe. And everything in this video is my thoughts, opinions, and or alleged. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye, guys.